Watkins, Dallas Morning News. Your thoughts on the Broncos pass rush? I think they lead the league in sacks and able to get after guys.
Yeah, they really do a good job, not just of timing the count, which is one thing that you always find with good pass rush teams, but it's a very structured pass rush. So it's not just a bunch of individuals out there trying to win on their own. I mean, they do a pretty good job of hunting in the pack, trying to force the quarterback to stay in the pocket and try to push the middle in on them and high rush on the outside. So you can tell it's being coached really well.
How do you balance the max protection and you got to get enough guys out there so Dak can have some targets?
I think you got to mix it up. You can't, I think, just put all your eggs in one basket when it comes to the way that you want to protect the quarterback. And so having the ability to say, on this play, we're going to, protect with 5. On this play, we're going to protect with what we would say is like 6.5. Or, just throwing in a random 8-man protection or 7-man protection. Defensive guys usually don't like that. And so that's not like the sexiest thing to say that you're going to do that. But I think when you have the ability to throw that out randomly, people don't like it.
Nick Harris, 4-Star Telegram. Javonte Williams is going back to Denver. Are you guys cognizant of that during the week? Do y'all have conversations about that with Javonte at all? Just conversations or anything?
I did actually think about it the other night. I'll probably give like the most coachy response to that ever, is just that he's going to be excited because he's always excited to play. But no, I'm sure in the back of his mind somewhere there's a little bit of extra excitement. But just knowing the type of professional that Javonte is, I think it's the most important game of the year to him because it's the one that we're playing against this week. That was the most coachy response in history, just so you guys are aware. Yeah.
I knew you guys had high expectations for him, but for him to be second in the league in rushing through 7 weeks and giving you the production that he has there been any surprise to the level of play that you have gotten from Javonte?
I'm not surprised by him having success, no. You really, I guess, never know until you get into live situations and people have to try to get him on the ground. But I had always admired the guy coming out of college in the draft. I thought he was a really good player. We had the guy, his teammate Michael Carter, when I was in Arizona, and I remember both of those guys coming out. And I just remember his first 2 years in Denver, thinking this guy's going to be really good. So I had always had a high opinion of him. So no, I'm not surprised.
Klayton, Todd Archer with ESPN. How much do you guys pay attention to home road splits in terms of yards, points per game, things like that? Does that matter at all?
I actually haven't really thought about it. We think probably more often about, I guess, the way that you prep for crowd noise and your procedure at the line of scrimmage, knowing that you're going to be on silent the entire game. But I hadn't really thought about, is your differential, your point differential between home and road?
Yeah, why do you think? I'm sure every team's different, maybe a little bit, but you guys are 40 points at home, 24.5 on the road. Is it just the way games have gone?
Yeah, I guess at this point my response would just be that that's just a happening type of thing. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I'd probably have to look closer at that. And probably just the way that the games have gone, I suppose. I'd have to look a little bit deeper. I don't have a great answer to that. That's a good question.
Wasn't in the coach's handbook.
It was. No, the one that I read on the way in, man. It must have been in the back or not in the cliff notes.
John Machado with The Athletic. What do you think was the biggest reason why you guys, you didn't run well in Charlotte, but then you guys run well, obviously, against Washington like that? Was there anything that happened in practice or anything that maybe, or even after that game, where just the team was motivated to get back on track? I've thought a lot about that. And the first thing that comes to mind for me is just that styles make fights, and just because somebody has, whatever statistical ranking that they have and another team has whatever statistical ranking that they have, doesn't mean that the style that you're going to bring that day and the style that they're going to play that day are going to match up exactly like that. And so, looking back at the Carolina game, like I said last week, I felt like there were some things that I wish we would have done a little bit differently going into the game. We've learned a little bit from that, I think, of just about what kind of team we are and the way that we need to operate. And then, sometimes I think it comes down to just maybe you didn't play your best game that day, and that probably has something to do with it as well.
And then, obviously, I know you're coaching on the offensive side of the ball, but in your time being with the team, has there been anything about DeMarvion Overshown, whether it be out at practice or just being around him, that stands out to you?
Yeah, I mean, dude's got juice. I mean, he is exciting to be around. He's got a big personality. Again, I don't coach him. I try to be around him some just because I like the guy, but I'm excited to watch him play once he's able to get back out there.
Tommy?
Tommy Arsh, DallasCowboys.com. What stands out about this Broncos secondary?
Yeah, I mean, they have the ability to essentially play whatever coverage they want just because that they're talented enough and big enough and rangy enough to play man, and they're well coached enough and smart enough to, play zone drop if they needed to. And I think the guys that play the underneath coverage are really smart players, and that's where I think people get screwed up a little bit when they try to be multiple coverage-wise is they don't really the underneath pieces don't understand the assignments as well as they need to, so they just end up saying, hey, we're going to play man-to-man so everybody knows what to do. This is a smart defense. I think they're in year 3 with VJ, and he's always been a challenge and very multiple that way, and you can tell that this defense is in his head. They know what he expects, and they play the way he wants them to.
And then having Cooper Beebe back, what was his practice like yesterday, and what are your expectations for him the rest of the week?
Yeah, I mean, I always think kind of the same thing when it comes to a player that's trying to return is just let's put one foot in front of the other and not get ahead of ourselves. And so I thought yesterday was a step forward, being that we were in pads, and that we'll find out a little bit more today. But I think you really got to get to the end of the week and just see if you can cross the finish line when there's a player that's designated to return. So we'll see what happens.
Dave Lofberg, 105.3 The Fan, Cowboys Radio. First off, Bron, you got to give Coach the coach's handbook on his way down.
Yeah, don't take that one. That one's okay.
Yeah, I was going to see if I can get the audio book and listen to it on the way home.
You've had 2 fumbles on the quarterback center exchange, one in Carolina, obviously one last week, got on them both, but it appeared, and you tell me, it appeared that in Carolina the snap was late, and this time the snap came early. Would that be accurate?
It appeared to me that one of them was late. It was a little bit harder to tell with the second one. I thought it may have gone off the side of his hand on the second one. I wasn't sure whether it was early or not.
And obviously you work on that every day.
Yeah, and the answer to that is we have to not do it, right? So you got to solve the problem, but I also think that it's important in these type of things not to overreact and get in the players' heads a little bit about it. So we've tried to just tweak a couple things and say, is this going to help, or what are the issues? You try to talk to each guy individually and say, hey, what can we do to support you in this area that can make this a little bit easier? But in the back of my mind, I always say, all right, let's do something to feel like we're moving forward and to feel like we're making progress without changing lanes, so to speak, but also know that sometimes those things are going to happen too, and we don't need a massive overreaction.
Garrett Podell, CBS Sports. Klayton, what did you think of how kind of CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens handled just both of them being out there and the targets and everything like that this past week with CeeDee coming back?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that they both did a really nice job. I mean, the only problem with having 2 receivers like that is that in the back of your mind, you're like, man, I hope I can get him the ball enough. But that did not seem like it was, as big of an issue last week. And it's actually pretty fun. Those 2 guys really like being out there together. And I think you saw on like one of the first runs that Javonte had early in the game when GP came down and just blocked the heck out of the safety, and then Javonte was one-on-one with the corner. Like, he likes scoring touchdowns and making plays, but that guy really loves playing football too. And so you don't end up getting a whole bunch of pouting from those guys. At least so far, it's been they love being out there.
And how impactful is Drake Greenlaw, the Denver Broncos linebacker, suspension to what you guys do?
He only played a limited amount of snaps last week because I think he was on a pitch count. Obviously, I'm familiar with him just from the time that I was in the NFC West and he was in San Francisco, and I thought he was an outstanding player then. Hard to know, what impact he would have made just being that he's coming off the injury.
Joe?
Joe White, Dallas Morning News. Not a question I thought I'd ask earlier this season, but are you more inclined after the Jets game and last week to run in 2-minute drills with Javonte Williams?
I think some of that has to do with what your plan is going into them. Shoddy obviously does a really good job of kind of calling things off the cuff, and that's what the situation you kind of end up being in 2-minute. And I guess the answer to that would be anytime that you're having success, for sure, you're probably, you've got your experiences are positive, and so your propensity to go back to the well is probably higher. But some of those, honestly, are kind of you're going into the game and saying, all right, what are we going to see from this team? And if you're seeing something that's advantageous for you to run the ball, usually you have a few more of those in those situations. Even that, I think, is kind of a game plan.
Yeah, and that note though, with those runs he had before the half in both those games, how much of a catalyst were those? And I guess how surprised are you when you see him, kind of doing those runs when it's a 2-minute drill?
Yeah, I mean they were huge, and that was a kind of a big thing in Arizona as well is if you can find space for the back, like you're going to be able to find it in those situations, and I trust that guy when he's one-on-one out in space with a defensive back. So as much as we can put him in that situation, I know that Shoddy feels the same as we'd like to do it, but. I guess to answer your question is if you know that you're going to have enough space, or if they're a team that's going to come up and play you tight, you kind of like those guys on the outside too.
Skyler?
Skyler Dixon with the AP. Why do you think George and CE have meshed so well?
That's a good question. I've actually thought about that quite a bit too, because those dudes are like attached at the hip around the building, and their personalities, I think, really blend well together. I think probably the best answer to that is neither of those guys have a really big ego. I mean, like they both want the ball and they both want to be successful, but like neither of those guys are dudes that you're walking around the building going, man, I don't really want to be around that guy. I mean, they're fun dudes to be around. I think they genuinely love football, and so I think when you get two of those guys together that are super competitive, that both really love football, that kind of have bubbly personalities, it's a good match. And we're lucky to have that.
Javonte, it seems pretty clear that for you and Shoddy, he was a big part of the restructuring of the running game. What were the conversations with you and Shoddy when it came time to, try to decide to sign him and how he fit and that kind of stuff?
I think, the conversation in free agency is always, as a starting point, value. And so, I think any player that you're discussing during free agency is going to start with that is, what is the value here? And I think there were probably a lot of people that were kicking the tires on Javonte, going, well, he's coming back from an injury, you're not really sure. And I think what our personnel department saw and Shoddy saw was, this is an opportunity because we think this guy's really good. And, that he's maybe not commanding as high a price as he would have last year without the injury. So probably value-oriented as a starting point.
Christy?
Christy Scales, Cowboys Radio 105.3 The Fan. What has made Denver so stout on third down?
Well, the best answer to that is they have forced more 3rd and 8s than anybody else in the league, I think, is the statistic. I'm not a big stat guy, but I do think that that's part of it is they're winning 1st and 2nd down. And so they're a little bit more exotic in 2nd and long. They kind of get into some of their 3rd down packages then, which sometimes scares people out of running the ball, sometimes puts you in a situation where now you're playing 2 3rd downs in a row, which is tough. So essentially, right, schematically. So that's they're winning 1st down, and then they get you in 2nd and 8 or more, and they're getting kind of exotic, and then they've got you in a situation on 3rd down where it's loud, and they're timing the snap count, and they play a lot of different exotic looks and a variation of coverages. They've done a really good job with that. They're very well coached.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep. Thank you.